All right, so let's just start from the very beginning. How old were you when you got into bull riding? And was this something that your parents gave the okay for, or was this something that you made an executive decision and told your parents, I'm going to do this?
Yeah, so I guess it bull riding wise probably started um, out of steer riding when I was about 15, but it all kind of began, I would say, at a very, very, very young age. Just being I was raised in a kind of rodeo family, and like touched on earlier, these pictures behind me of my father rodeoing and my uncle rode bulls and some cousins rodeoed as well. Um, the TV always kind of had bull riding on it and stuff like that. So my mom tells a story when I was 3 years old. My mom and dad were watching the PBR on TV, and I looked at my mom and said, "One day you're going to be watching me ride bulls on TV." So I would say, probably from then on, I had full intentions of becoming a bull rider. Um, and then, moving forward um, into my like years of 9, 10 years old, I started riding steers. Um, and actually, I rode my first steer here at home. And after we were done vaccinating, and I come in the house, told my mom what I was going to be doing, and she wanted to dress me up in all my hockey gear and everything. And I said, "Mom, bull riders don't wear that." Um, and then yeah, that next year I think I entered a few rodeos in the steer riding and yeah, just kind of climbed the ranks through the steer riding. And then, like I said, when I was 15, went junior bull riding for a year, and then you can ride junior bulls until you're 18, but I decided to only ride them till I was 16, and then step up to the open bull riding, which is riding against older guys and bigger bulls and older bulls. So I did that until I was 18, and then made the decision I was going to go pro. So
Let's take a step back. You mentioned hockey. Is that just a constant in every Canadian family?
yeah, I would probably say it is. I mean, it's winter, for 6 months of the year pretty well, and when you're a younger kid, for me especially, other than hockey and school sports, there really wasn't much else to do. I mean, if you're going to be a athletic kid and partake in sports, that was really just your best option through the winter months. Um, so yeah, I played hockey until I was, I think, 12, and then I started taking rodeoing and steer riding, I guess, a lot more seriously, and was getting on like practice steers throughout the winter and stuff like that. And then, from the time I was young until probably about that same age of 12, I played baseball as well in the summertime. And yeah, I've kind of always been involved in sports, whether it be like school sports, basketball, volleyball, track and field, and then yeah, hockey and baseball, and then decided to take a more extreme sport as my profession.
When you were in middle school and high school trying to establish yourself, what were your classmates saying about your rather non-traditional career choice?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, I've never really had anyone ask me that, and it's kind of funny, being I was raised like my town, my hometown is very small, like of 200, 300, 400 people. It's a very farming, agriculture based area. But it was funny, like and like I'm not saying I was bullied or anything, because I wasn't, but a lot of kids would, make jokes or whatever about me wearing a buckle or tucking my shirt in and wearing boots or whatever. And then as I got older, through like middle school, you kind of the same thing until I kind of went into high school, grade 9, 10. Um, Mainly it was gone. Like I'd go to school for a class and then go to work experience or whatever. And I think then I was like in a super small school, so everyone knew me from the time I was 6, right? Just as I knew them. And I think they just kind of realized that that's what Coy does. And lots of questions like, aren't you worried about getting hurt, or you know stuff like that, a lot of teachers would ask. But um yeah, I would say just kind of just, I guess, what a regular kid would go through. Everyone's kind of trying to find their own way, and some are out of the ordinary compared to others. And so I think it was just similar to most.
So let's talk about that support system. I mean, you grew up on a ranch, so you were surrounded by this experience since you were little.
Right.
What did your parents say to you when you came up to them and said, I have an opportunity to ride professionally? And this is not at all what the ordinary, I guess, 9 to 5 job entails.
No, being a bull rider really is being a professional world traveler, um, professional fun haver, and an amateur accountant. Really, is is what it entails. Um, yeah, since I've been about 12 years old, I've really put a lot of work into rodeoing. Um, like from the time I was very young, I was terrible. Like I sucked badly for like the first 2 years of steer riding. I never rode one animal. Like, so we got to ride for 8 seconds, and I maybe would ride for like 2, 3, 4 seconds. And it wasn't until my dad said, actually, on the way to a rodeo, he said, if you don't want to do this, that's okay, you know. And I said, no, I want to do it. I want to do it. And he said, well, then you're gonna have to start. My dad's kind of a hard ass, like, um, there's no excuses and stuff like that. So he said, well, then you're gonna have to put in some work and show me that you want it. And so kind of from that time on, I was like 12 years old doing push-ups, sit-ups morning and night. And then as I got older, like 15, 16, I really started to take interest in building my own like actual workouts specifically for bull riding and stuff like that. And so I think my parents seen, from the time I was young all the way, like my whole or all my stages of growth through my career, to when it come time that I wanted to ride professionally. I don't even really think it was a question for them. Like they just knew that was what was going to happen. The only thing I would say is, so you have to be 18 to ride pro, and my birthday is June 23rd, which is like halfway through the year, just about. And so my dad was like, questioning me on why would you go pro halfway through the year. But at the beginning of that year, I had set a goal that I needed to ride, or I wanted to be riding 80% of my bulls in the amateur associations. And then if I hit that goal, then I was going to go pro no matter what time of year it was. And I think, yeah, by the time my birthday came, I think my riding percentage was like 82%. So I bought my card and it worked out great. I achieved some, good things and yeah, I've just grown from it. But like I said, I don't really think it was much of a question. It was just more of a when it's going to happen.
Do you have a college degree? I mean, you're 22, right?
No, so I graduated when I was 16. I graduated a year early of high school, and then from the time I was 16, throughout the winter I'd go to like winter jackpots, bull riding, and then in the summer would be bull riding full time. And then I worked for a farmer, family friend that farms near us for a few years just for extra cash. But no, I never went to school. And then September of 2020, I started my own company, selling mineral and feed and seed and stuff for livestock, and that's been tremendous. So I really, in all honesty, don't have any intentions of going to get a degree.
Yeah, I mean, yours has been a non-traditional path since the beginning, so that doesn't
Yeah,
surprise me.
why not? Yeah, why change it? So
All right,
yeah, and I'm
so
big on learning a lot of things myself. Like I used to be in 4-H, and the motto is learn to do by doing, and I really follow that. So in the regard of like starting a business, I'm not really from a business family or anything like that, so I really had no idea what I was doing. But yeah, just took the time to learn on my own, and I think, in all honesty, you can learn just as much by yourself as you could going to school. So if you put in the work, so that's just kind of how I see it.
yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about that rookie season, because what a rookie season it was.
Yes, yeah, it was. was a season for sure, a short, half the year season, but was very honored to receive the 2017 PBR Canada Rookie of the Year, which is a goal I had set since the time I was like 16, was to achieve a Rookie of the Year achievement. Just being, it's a one-shot deal. You only have 1 year to achieve that, and luckily I was able to do so. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. Jumped in with some close friends, and yeah, I got to travel all over and experience what the pros do, and it was definitely a blast, that's for sure.
How did you decide that you wanted to go pro at that moment? I mean, halfway through the season, when your parents were saying maybe you should wait the rest of the
Yeah,
season and try again next season. I mean, and then you ended up becoming Rookie of the Year.
yeah, I don't, like I said, I'm very goal orientated, and setting unrealistic goals. I think being realistic is a silly way of putting things. I set really unrealistic goals and then just break it down from there. Like a ladder, and small goals and small achievements to achieve that, potentially unrealistic goal. And so at the beginning of that year, I had wrote out my whole plan of how I was gonna, you know, um, allow myself to go pro, and it all just fell completely into place. Like throughout that winter, I was going like twice a week to jackpots, riding just about everything they run underneath me. And then into the summer months, um, I actually created such a lead in the one amateur association. Um, After even not going half of the year, I still was able to achieve season leader award. Um, so I just think in rodeo there, um, you don't want to go pro too early and like step out of your element, and it can be really discouraging, and be hard on your confidence just with better bowls, and you're riding against Canadian champions and guys you've idolized. So there definitely isn't, or is, a possibility of overstepping. But then there's also, in my mind, the possibility of just holding yourself back for too long. And I think just um, in the present moment where I was at, I just felt that it was my time, that I was going to go pro. And there's obviously like my parents and some other old bull riders even and stuff that were saying like, it's a big step, and you might as well just finish out the year here and start it off in the new year. And maybe they were right, maybe they weren't, but for me at that time, that I figured that was the step I needed to take to prosper and grow as a bull rider. And yeah, I think it was beneficial.
So you just mentioned that you were competing against bull riders that you had idolized in the past. Walk
Yeah,
me through that process.
that was really incredible. Like, guys, well, I'm still riding with the one Zane Lambert. I remember watching him when I was just a steer rider. And then like even when I was a steer rider at the Canadian Finals rodeo in 2014, a lot of the guys that were in the locker room there in the bull riding were in the locker room my rookie year riding bulls. So it was a real neat experience to be able to share the locker room with them, as a competitor. Um, and it's neat too. Like in life or bull riding, I think you should always be a sponge. I think you should always want to soak up as much information as you can, and then filter that out, to see what best suits you. And so I mean, my rookie year, I would ask questions, and I would really listen to them older guys, and like I said, filter out, what I think was necessary for me, and what I, wasn't much of a fan of. Um, but I'm definitely very thankful to be able to say that I shared the locker room with some of them guys, um, as time goes on.
What is the conversation within a professional bull riding locker room?
Honestly, it's probably a lot different than say an NHL hockey team. I mean, really, yeah, I'm trying to even think like
Well, let's
the
break it down. So that's, I mean, you're in a very individualized sport. Is there communication between fellow bull riders, or is it mostly up in your own head?
I think an assortment of both. I mean, bull riding is mainly, I would say, like so much so mental, like of a mental game, to where you don't want to get too in your own head, right? Um, in all honesty, like it's a camaraderie that you wouldn't find, I don't think, on any other sports. Um, because in the end, we're not really there competing against each other. Like we're all there to achieve the same thing and win or um, make money or whatever. But in the end, we're really competing against the bull, right? Um, because if we ride the bull, it's a judge sport. So if we ride the bull, then it's up to the judges to decide who wins. But we did our job, and that was to just ride our bull. Um, I'm not really there to beat my traveling partner or to beat St. Lambert or to beat any of them guys. I'm there to ride my bull to the best of my ability, and whatever happens. So I think it's very much so a friendly atmosphere. Um, Lots of laughs, lots of jokes, lots of picking fun. Because like it's funny, like the Edmonton Oilers don't travel with the Pittsburgh Penguins to events or the Calgary Flames to events, right? But we travel with one another. So I got 3 to 4 guys in the truck with me that are all going. We're all going to the same place to achieve the same thing. Which you don't really find in a lot of other sports. And all the people that all my best friends and really close friends that I've gained through life have been through rodeoing and guys that I really pretty much compete with. So yeah, it's a real friendly atmosphere, and like I said, lots of jokes and picking fun at one another. But yeah, that's really it. Nothing too serious.
So the prayer that you have on the wall behind you, is that before every competition?
Yeah, so for pretty well every rodeo you go to, they'll say this prayer, but in the regard of PBR, they say a little different prayer, and it has more to do with um, veterans and things like that. But yeah, most every event you go to, you'll hear some sort of prayer be said.
Wow. Is that a bonding experience between fellow bull riders that they all
Yeah,
like?
it definitely can be for sure. Everyone sees their own views and has their own views, but definitely can be for sure. Like if you go down to the States specifically, when that prayer starts being said, everyone takes a knee and puts their hand on each other's back, and as a prayer is said. So it definitely can be for sure. And then a lot of guys, have their own deal before they get on. Like you'll see, some guys will take a knee, before they get on their bull, and um, yeah, like I said, everyone's got their own views and their own way of doing things, and being such a dangerous sport. Yeah, prayers definitely do tend to be the more popular way of going about things.
Can you read it to me?
Yeah, I haven't read it in a long time. Heavenly Father, we pause mindful of the many blessings you have bestowed upon us. We ask that you be with us at this rodeo, and we pray that you will guide us in the arena of life. We don't ask for special favors. We don't ask to draw around a shoot fighting horse or to never break a barrier, nor do we ask for all daylight runs or not to draw a steer that won't lay. Help us, Lord, to live our lives in such a manner that when we make the last inevitable ride to the country up there where the grass grows lush green and stirrup high and the water runs cool, clear, and deep, that you as our last judge will tell us that our entry fees are paid. Amen.
Amen. Wow.
Yeah, I'll tell you, when you're at a good rodeo and they got the bucking horses loaded in the chute, for the bareback riders before the event, and they start playing or reciting this prayer, and the bucking horses start getting antsy and kicking the chute, and yeah, it's a feeling that goes through your body that I've never really experienced in anything else.
I mean, you were reading that and I was like, yes, let's go.
Yeah.
But let's get back to what happens after the prayer is said. And take me back to 2017 when you were knocked unconscious. I mean, we were just talking about.
Oh, you knew that. Do your
I've
homework.
done my research. My goodness.
Yeah, that unfortunately that and all injuries are very likely in this game, and happen, unfortunately, more times than they should. Um, but that's just when it comes to, like, for me, just trusting the process, and as a fairly young guy at 22 years old, I've been sidelined due to injury a lot, more times than I wish. But yeah, that's just like I always say to people, I knew the risks when I took the job. Um, and and as far as I'm concerned, it's a game of inches. So I'd rather a broken arm than the alternative, which could be, death essentially. Um, yeah, I think to be a bull rider, everyone says, "Oh, you got to be crazy or whatever," but I think you just really have to, you just have to accept the fact that you're doing what you love, and that could be taken away from you. So do it like it's your last time every time. And I don't imagine really any of us that strap onto bulls are really afraid of death. Um, it's sad when it does happen, but unfortunately part of the game. And then, as well as injuries, and yeah, it's just a risky game that they come with.
I'm going to run through the list of injuries that I have written down for you. Tell me if I missed anything.
Okay.
So you were knocked unconscious, and then 2 weeks later, you got a concussion. And then after that, you broke your humerus and dislocated your shoulder.
Yeah.
Am I missing any other injuries?
Yeah. And then I broke my right forearm. I got a plate and 11 screws in there. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is that the majority of injuries are to arm regions. Is that consistent?
Um, for me, apparently, yes. But in a lot of, like, I would say the main injuries in bull riding would be shoulder dislocations and breaks, blowing up your knees. Um, and then like I said, it's a game of inches, right? So like I got one good friend that broke both his legs. Well, I guess I think his one ankle he broke, and then was kept getting on, and then the next weekend he broke his other leg, like tibular fibula or whatever, which happens, I would say, just as much as someone breaking their arm. Um, but in the regard of like the two main injuries, I would say besides concussions would be, yeah, shoulder dislocations, and then like tearing your knees apart and stuff like that.
How does the return to competition differ depending on where the injury is on you?
For me, that's something I've struggled with, was coming back after injuries. Like in regards to my concussions, I've had a number of them, and um, for some reason I find it a little easier to come back after those. Maybe because you can't really see them, which is tough. But and they're, I would say, more serious than really any injury. But never really struggled with coming back from them. But when I dislocated and broke my shoulder, I was out for a year and a month. And when I came back, I was like my first 6 bowls back after that long off. I rode them and, looked good doing it. And then as soon as I started entering events, it's, you get the atmosphere and the crowd and music and better bowls. I sucked for like till June probably. I come back in April, and I sucked until June. And I would think for that injury, it was just allowing myself to get past the thought of going through all that again. Because with that injury, there was some other things that came about it. Like that, I would say the hardest thing with that injury was not the healing part of my shoulder or anything. It was the mental side of it. Um, like, yeah, so I was in a sling for 3 months, I guess, not at all able to my arm out of the sling, like not even to put a shirt on. And then with that, my surgeon said I shouldn't be driving, and I was on some painkillers and stuff. Obviously, shouldn't drive on those. So essentially, that happened in February, and I'm in Canada, so it's cold then. So from February until about April, I was pretty much just not locked, but like in this house for 3 months. And like, we touched on, since the time I've been very young, every summer I'm rodeoed, every weekend. So for that to be taken away, and now you're at home, you can't go rodeoing. The four walls start to close in on you a little bit. For me, very, very much so, to where I fell into some depression and stuff like that. Yeah, so that part of the injury was the toughest on me, and I think when I come back, I didn't want to have to, have to re-experience all that again. So, like, the only thing in bull riding you can control is how hard you try. And I would, I was kind of known as a kid that would try till his head hit the ground. When I come back from that shoulder, I would get in a little bit of a bind, and I would just get off, to save myself, essentially. And I think that was just because I didn't want to re-experience, potentially hurting myself again. And then I don't even know what it really took for that to kind of get out of my mind, and for me to, allow myself to do what I do. Maybe it was someone, getting after me and telling me to quit being a baby. I don't know. I kind of, like, things like that don't really bother me. They more or less fire me up. So maybe it was something like that. I don't really know. And then it clicked, and things were going good. And then in September, bull stepped on my arm and broke my arm. So I think at the time that that I broke my arm, I was 9th in Canada, which was the best at that time or highest in the standings I had been. And yeah, so I missed the finals that year and everything else. And just with that, and then with that injury, it wasn't near as painful, or it was still as long. It was some complications with it. I needed 2 surgeries and was out for about 12 months, 11 to 12 months. But I just knew, what I had went through with my shoulder, going into depression and really not having a purpose. When I broke my arm, I knew I didn't want to fall back into that. And I knew which steps I needed to take to make sure that didn't happen. And then I took, like, I'm very much into working out and trying to be the best athlete I can be. So I took that injury as, okay, this is my new sport. Rehab is my new sport, and I'm going to be the absolute best at it that I can be to get back as soon as I can. Unfortunately, I can't speed up bone healing, but and then COVID hit, and we didn't have very, very many events to go to at all, and then yeah, this year I've been extremely grateful I made her through the year. And yeah, it was kind of tough coming back, actually, after quite a bit of time off with COVID and stuff. Almost forgot how to ride bulls, I think, but then, yeah, I don't know, something. I just got kind of coming on fall. I kind of just got sick of taking part. And I'm really big into, like, self-talk and positive self-talk and stuff like that. But I'm also not afraid to dig deep and get after myself, because I do know my potential and what I am capable of. So I think I just had a good talk with myself and got sick of taking part, and just kind of showing up and never being a part of the conversation. And then it really started to click, and yeah, I kind of finished the year out real strong. which was good.
Before we talk about how you finished this year, we're going to talk about the affinity for bull riding and how that overlaps with being an adrenaline junkie. Because I've had a couple other elite sport athletes who are in crazy sports. I mean, like speed skiing and race car driving and now bull riding. And I think that I would like to hear how you think that adrenaline junkies are drawn to bull riding.
I'm just trying to think back to when I was young. You know, in all honesty, since the time I've been little, I've never had really any fear. Like you tell me to jump a quad off of a jump, I'll probably do it. You know, at 6 years old, never really put much thought into things like that. But you do have to have something about you that craves that adrenaline feeling going through your body, because I don't think it's for everyone. Like, not everyone jumps out of an airplane for fun, right? But I would love to do that, you know. And I think it'd touch back on the mental side of things in the regard of putting too much thought into things, right? So I think, like, for example, skydiving, some people would put too much thought into, you know, the possible outcome, like what could happen or whatever. And same for bull riding. You know, if you show up to the event and you're tense and, you know, putting so much thought into, you know, what could happen, you'll probably psych yourself out. So as a bull rider, I think you kind of just got to be live in the moment and not put too much thought into say bull riding, and just kind of live life day by day, and yeah, definitely can't have any fear about you.
What kind of evaluation goes into the half an hour before you get on the bull?
Yeah, I see everyone is different, so I'll just speak for myself. Really nothing crazy. Like, I don't really think about, because that's where I find I run into trouble, is if I get thinking about it too much and say psych myself up, you know, and get all jacked up about it. My outcome is never good. So I always just try and stay extremely calm and relaxed. And yeah, like, for example, 30 minutes before the event, I would be sitting in the change room visiting with, you know, all my buddies about probably something that doesn't even have to do with bull riding at all. Yeah, like, really, you know, a lot of people think, like, I'm sure a hockey player, you know, 30 minutes before, they're probably, you know, in their zone and you know, getting it on their mind. But I think in bull riding, it's so much a mental game that you almost don't even want to think about it. Like, for me anyways, I should say. Yeah, I just probably really don't put any thought into bull riding at all. Have zero bull riding thoughts go through my mind until the bull runs in the chute, and then I know it's a game time, and even up until that point, I just try and stay as calm as I can, and a lot of people refer it to like a dance. Like, the bull is in the lead, and I'm, you know, a split second essentially behind him. Any farther than that, and you'll find yourself in a bind. But if you just stay in that, like a dance, you know, in timing and that rhythm, it can look real fascinating.
That's interesting that you call it a dance. I mean,
Yes.
how much? We're reconfiguring.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so how much of that dance are you actually controlling, or are you just reactionarily responding?
Yeah, really, we're not in control. You know, the bull is full-heartedly in control, and in the lead. because there's a thing of overriding a bull and not riding enough. So if we override, we'll buck ourselves off. And then if we're not riding enough, we'll buck off as well. So you got to find that, like a dance, right? Like if you and I were to dance and I'm leading, but you're trying to go way faster than I am, we're going to end up in a bind. So it's just finding that rhythm. And as you do it for long enough, it comes almost naturally, like muscle memory. But yeah, just find that rhythm, and you just making counter moves to his move, like a split second behind almost. And yeah, it's not really too complex.
Is the workout that you were referring to earlier primarily arms and core, or are there legs as well? I mean, how
No,
much of your workout is dedicated to each part of your body?
about the equally amount through them all. I would say the most essential part is your hips, which in terms, your core as well. But like a bull rider, like I weigh 145 pounds. I'm not really a big guy, but you don't really want to be, all muscle bound and jacked. Really, you got a lot more muscle to move then. And in all reality, there's a lot of bull riders that don't even work out. Like, for a professional sport and how much of athletes we are, there's some that don't even work out. And it's just finding what works for you. And for me, working out. So to answer your question, I guess I do every day like a 45-minute full body HIIT workout, kind of from head to toe. And then some people here in Canada that we work with through the sports medicine, they built me like a prehab workout for to help my shoulder out, to help my forearm, and then just some other things that my body might need work on, like some parts of my hips or whatever like that. But so I do that as well. But for me, working out, like I've rode bulls and not worked out and done fine. And my traveling partner and best friend doesn't work out. He just is a mechanic, which is a workout in itself. But and he's one of the best in Canada for sure. So it's just finding what works for you, and for me, working out just is that inner confidence, knowing that when I show up to an event, I did absolutely everything I could to be my best version of myself. So when I show up to an event, I know I put in the work, and it just helps with that mental game, of bull riding. And like I said, everyone's different, and you ask a lot of them probably don't work out, and that's just their, I'm sure they got their own little mental thing that they got going that works for them. So yeah, it's just finding what works for you, and then capitalizing on it.
What is the lifespan of a bull riding career normally? And why do the majority of you guys exit the industry? Is it injury? Is it just normal wear and
Um,
tear?
yeah, I would say like for a professional career, 18 years old until you're probably looking to get out when you're about 35, I would say. If you can make it to 35, you're doing good. You're an elite. Um, but yeah, you can run into guys having a, early retirement due to injuries, too many shoulder complications, or too many blown out knees, or too many concussions, or whatever. And then, some just, because it's a tough way to make a living, right? If you really want to make a good living out of it, you're gone all the time. So, by the time you're, 30, you probably got a family, some kids, and it would get tough for sure. I can imagine for those guys, being gone so much, and doing such a dangerous profession, away from their family. And I think then it just, as life goes on, I think it just, they don't get sick of it, I don't imagine, but they just get to where family is more important, or what they have going on at home is more important, and then they, yeah, just step away. Because if you're not fully invested 100% in this game, um, I don't imagine you'll be very good at it, and it's too dangerous just to, half-ass essentially.
Can you, while we're on the topic of making money, can you work me through the process of partnering with a brand? I mean,
Yeah, so
how do you get people to recognize you and help make you money?
yeah, so for me, I've always kind of been intrigued by marketing or sales or um, things like that. So for me, that's one of the parts that I enjoy most about it is marketing myself, to gain sponsorships and endorsements. But in a lot of cases, a lot of guys have agents that pursue companies to partner with that rider. But like for me, for example, I got a couple sponsors when I was like young steer rider, and then I had a guy confront me in a gas station actually one time, from where my dad grew up. I guess he hadn't seen my dad in like years and years and years, and they got visiting, and he asked me. I was there. I was like 12 or 13, and he asked me what I was doing, and I told him that I rode steers professionally and was rodeoing and stuff like that. And we left the gas station, and then he pulled his truck up beside us and said, "Hey, I'd like to sponsor you." And I was like 13 years old. I was like, "Oh my, okay." And I had built a tremendous relationship with that company, Devil Oil Field out of Killam, Alberta. They sponsored me right up until last year, from the time I was 13 years old until 21. Um, and then in the regard of like other types of endorsements or sponsorships, I think it just comes into how you can market yourself, and how you present yourself and carry yourself. Um, I always try and carry myself as a professional, um, and do my utmost for my sponsors. And it's like people talk, right? And now with social media, um, you can get yourself out there really quite easily. Um, and yeah, I just actively work on putting myself out there, and um, uh, presenting myself as a professional, like I said, and it just honestly has seemed to um, just draw companies to me, I guess, wanting to work together. And it's neat, like to partner up with a bull rider is quite neat, because I just did calculations for one of the trainers that work with the sports medicine, in regards to how many miles we put on in a year. And without, like, not flying, I would put on about 60,000 kilometers in a year. And then with flying, also about 60,000 kilometers of flying. So we're all over, US and Canada and everywhere in between. And if you carry yourself as a professional, and so, like, I embroider the company logo on my shirts and on my vest, and we have pictures getting taken of us quite frequently, and essentially we're a moving billboard all across Canada and the US. So it is a neat partnership that can be built, that's for sure. And I'm very grateful for them, because they definitely help, in the regard of helping us make money.
And I'm gonna go back to the injuries. I hate to dwell on them, but
No, no,
I
that's
I
good.
want to talk about head injuries and head trauma in total, because you guys now have a CTE issue.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, speaking of the CTE, Ty Posabon, one of the absolute best guys to ever be in the game, in the regard of everything. incredible bull rider, just a truly genuine guy that everyone would want to meet. Unfortunately, yeah, received too many head injuries, and with that brought some dark times for Posey, and yeah, dark enough for him to decide to commit suicide, and then yeah, later his brain was donated for research, and they diagnosed that he had CTE, which was the first ever in bull riding, and hopefully the last in that regard. But as tragic as it was for the whole sport, he really shed a light on concussions and the repercussions with them. So for that, I'm extremely grateful, because even myself, like as a younger kid coming up, I had been knocked out a few times, and you take some time off, and well, I'm good to go now. I feel good. And then yeah, after Posey's deal, it really opened a lot of guys' eyes in regard to how serious they can be. Because the thing with Posey is no one knew. Like, you'd meet him on the street or at a rodeo, and you would never know that he was struggling. So I think it opened a lot of eyes in that regard as well, that you never know. The guy sitting next to you in the change room right here might be struggling, and you don't know. So it really opened the eyes of everyone, and brought awareness to concussions for one, and how serious they are, and then as well as it's okay to not be okay. Like, you don't have to try and be tough and not want to talk to someone about it. But yeah, like I said, I hope that's the last CTE diagnosis that we ever have. But that is part of the game. Hitting your head, and luckily now with the sports medicine, along with the Ty Posabon Foundation, so they created a foundation in his name to help bring awareness to concussions and how serious they are, and then as well as mental health, and they also help fund the Canadian sports medicine team be at all of the events that we're at. And since Posey's death, the sports medicine team has grown an insane amount in the regard of team members, for one, to be able to go to all these events, and then the tools as well. So like every year, like starting here right away, I'll have to take a concussion test, like a baseline test, to get an idea where I'm at. And then whenever we hit our head, it's not up to us anymore. Like, because rodeo used to be like, oh, you're a cowboy, cowboy up, drink a beer and be tough. But, thankfully now it's being taken more as a sport, and more as we're being taken more as athletes, to where the sports medicine will tell us if we're allowed to ride or not. Not so much in the regard of, let's say I sprained my ankle and it hurts. They can't tell me that I can't ride. But in the regard of head injuries, they have full right to say if I'm good to go or not. I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever been denied, but I do know lots of guys that have hit their head, not even been knocked out unconscious, just kind of rattled their head a little bit, and they'll pull them in, okay, do a concussion test, and they failed. And it doesn't matter how much money's on the line, they will say you're not allowed to ride. And for me, that's, some guys might be upset at that, and I'm sure you would be at the time, but if you look into the grand scheme of things, you only get one brain, and there's no replacements, right? So you better take damn good care of it. So to shed some light on Posey, and yeah, he definitely helped the sport tremendously in a short amount of time in that regard.
Wow. What would you say to someone who was trying to get into the industry but was worried about the longevity of a career because of
Longevity
injury?
meaning?
Like, how long they would be able to stay uninjured?
I would say you could get
Or
injured on your
would you
first
just be
bowl.
like, yeah, stop?
Yeah, I could say you could be hurt on your first bowl, that you ever get on. That's why sometimes it bothers me. Like I used to go to a college just not far from home here, and there'd just be like random guys just want to say they rode a bull, so they get on. And I just shake my head like, you don't have any idea how how dangerous or serious like this is, like it's not like hockey, you want to say you've skated on ice. It's not like you just go make a couple laps and like it's quite serious. But yeah, so if someone were to come to me and that was their debate, I'd definitely tell them, you should really reconsider or at least just understand that you could get hurt on the first one, or you could ride 100 of them and not get hurt. You never know when it could happen, and it's really not if you get hurt in bull riding. It's usually just when and how bad. Like a lot of times, we'll get banged up at an event and not be hurt. We'll be sore pretty well after every event, and pretty well all through the year. We're sore, like one part of our body is sore, whether it be our elbow or our neck or our ankles or our shin bones or knees, whatever. Um, so there's also a difference between soreness and hurt. Like, and for bull riders, being hurt is a lot more serious, I think, than other sports. Just be like, there's guys getting on with broken foot, broken leg. I've gotten on with a cast on my free hand, broken jaws. And you don't really see that in other sports, but I think that would be because if we're not riding, we're not making money, right? So like we're not like a lot of sports on a contract base. Like we pay an entry fee. So for example, I have a Pbr this weekend, Saturday in Lloydminster, Alberta, and I'll pay $100 to get on a bull to potentially make money. You know what I mean? So it's almost like gambling on yourself to ride a bull, right?
It's like gambling on your health.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So I'll pay the $100, and I could ride both my bulls, and still, very unlikely. I'm sure if I were to ride both, I'd get paid something. But in some cases, I could ride both my bulls and not make any money, but still have paid that $100. So now I'm out $100, but I did my job. So that's where it comes down to how sore are you really, or how hurt are you really, in the regard of body parts. I got no issues turning out if I've hit my head or think I have a concussion or anything like that. I definitely, I don't try and tough that out. I'll turn out for sure. But in the regard of other parts of my body, like I have to be really hurt for me not to go.
And then you were just talking about your event this weekend, but let's talk about your event at the beginning of November and the fact that you got 10th place.
Yeah. Yeah, the PBR
Congratulations.
Canada, thank you. Yeah, the PBR Canada Finals. That was the first year that they were in Edmonton at the Rogers Place where the Edmonton Oilers play. And what a venue it was. I mean, that definitely should be where our finals are at. The crowd was tremendous, and yeah, that was the first finals I was able to compete at, not hurt, and so I was able to compete since my rookie year. So it was a incredible. It was almost a feeling I got my rookie year. Them first time kind of jitters almost. And yeah, had some success there and was able to make a bit of money and get some bulls rode. So it was good.
And then this podcast will come out after this weekend's competition. So with that in mind, what's up next for you?
So yeah, this weekend, and then I'll probably enter a PBR event in Kearney, Nebraska,
Welcome to
December.
the US.
Yeah, December 18th. I think I'll probably go to that one, and then come January, I don't know if I'll drive down to the States and stay down for like a month or a month and a half, or if I'll fly back and forth. But either way, yeah, I'll be in the States the month of January, kind of rolling into February. And then February, I think just about every weekend we have a PBR Canada Cup series event, which is like the biggest PBRs in Canada that we have. I think we'll have one of them every weekend in February and a couple in March, and then yeah, the pro rodeo season will fire up kind of in that time frame, as well as some smaller PBRs, and then yeah, back and forth from the US to Canada. So it'll be a busy year, I'm hoping.
And as we're wrapping up, is there anything else that you think that I missed about your story? Anything that you want to include that we have not up to this point?
No, I don't. If you're good, then I think I would be all right.
I'm
Unless you have
good.
anything else you want to ask or bring up.
Nope, that was the end of the questions. I just wanted to see if you had anything to promote, if you wanted to include any links to your work or how to get in contact with you. That this is normally the part of the interview where I say just plug whatever you want to plug.
Well, yeah, I mean, well, I guess you'll promote this on your Instagram, so my
Yep,
Instagram handle will be on there.
yep.
Yeah, then really other than that, that's really it. I don't have a website for my company or anything, so
Okay.
yeah.
And then, so this episode will come out next Wednesday. So once that comes out, it'll be posted on Wednesday and then social media on Thursday. So just look out for that.
Okay.
It'll go up on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Whoops, just threw this at you.
Oh, so on YouTube too.
Yes, so what I do is the entire interview that we're currently recording goes up on YouTube, unless there's something that you wanted edited out. There wasn't up to this point.
No.
But if there is, if I am in an interview where someone wants something edited out, that I will post the edited version to YouTube, but in its entirety. So we've
Okay.
been recording for almost an hour right now. So this entire chunk will go on YouTube, and then just a couple graphics and then like a quote from you will go up on Instagram and Twitter. And
Yeah.
you'll be tagged, and
Nice.
then the podcast will get edited, narrated, and then posted to SoundCloud, and then Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and a lot of others. But
Yeah, nice.
those are the two.
Nice. How long have you had the podcast going?
It's going really well. Your episode is, let's see, I believe your episode is episode 44. So I've been
Holy
doing
cow.
this for 44 weeks.
Oh, one every week.
Mhm. Yeah,
Nice.
I skipped this week, but yours will be coming out next Wednesday.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been an
How did
amazing.
you happen to find my Instagram?
You came up on my Instagram Explore page. It was just a picture of you like celebrating, and
Oh,
I think I messaged you from that, and I was like, you just came up on my Instagram Explore page. I know you don't know me, but let's schedule an interview because I think
yeah.
you'd be an awesome podcast interview. And
Yeah,
then you
no.
were like, absolutely, let's do this. Because I mean, I've had, like I was saying earlier, I've had a couple extreme sport
Yeah.
interviews and they've just been insane to me. But
Yeah.
I've also interviewed very traditional sports like the NFL, women's hockey, soccer. I mean, national
Yeah.
championships, World Series pitchers, NFL centers. Like I've these stories I've been able to tell thus far have been so cool, and yours is just another one to add
Yeah.
to the bunch.
No, that's awesome. Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you get a hold of like o- other people? Like
It's
DM them
normally
on Instagram or what?
it's normally the way that I did with you, just I'll see them on Instagram or I'll hear from their story from another source, or either they've written an article about themselves or had an article written about them. They've been on a podcast that I listen to.
Yeah.
And that way I know that they're good at telling their story because they've already told it once. So
Yeah.
I'm normally like, hey, I heard your story on XYZ podcast. Would you want to tell it on mine as well? That's obviously not what I
Yeah.
did with you because you showed up on my Instagram Explore page and I was like, I have to capitalize on this. Let's do but that is normally the way that I get my guests.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And do you just do this full time then, or do you have a
Yeah,
job of
so
yours?
this is, it's a time commitment for sure.
Yeah, I can
But
imagine.
I also cover college sports down in the States. So I'm
Okay.
all over the place. I'm looking at my schedule right now and it's this week has been crazy. But
Yeah.
yeah, so this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. Just keep telling these stories because I think that I will never run out of them.
No, no, I don't imagine. I think everyone pretty well has a story um,
Exactly.
to be told.
What I think is just so interesting is that everyone on this podcast that has come on has been completely vulnerable. Like
Hmm.
I've actually made a couple people cry with the questions that I've
Yeah,
asked. And like that's not the intent, you know, but
no,
the
but
fact
it's
that
just,
I create a safe space with this podcast. And
yeah,
it's just really interesting to see how it's received by each and every single individual I interview. And it's a really cool process.
yeah, no, I can imagine that's a neat experience for you for sure. That's
And
good stuff.
I don't want to take up any more of your time. That is the end of the questions I have. If there's anything between now and next Wednesday that you want me to include, any details from what happens on Saturday that you want me to update, I will gladly do that. And then if you could just send me a picture that I can use for the social media posts, it can either be
Hey,
you in action on a bull, it can be a headshot of you. It doesn't really matter. But if you can
okay,
just DM me that on Instagram and then we'll reconvene on Wednesday.
perfect. Sounds good.
All right. Bye. Have a
Awesome.
good rest of your day.
Yeah,
Thanks for hanging out with me.
you as well. Take care.
Bye.
See ya.